in Germany, where I spent a lot of time, they work a lot less than Americans or
Hey everybody, I'm Adam. 7 years ago, I quit the American dream to travel to some of the most interesting places around the world.
When you have a 9 to 5, 40-hour work week, and let's be honest, that 9 to 5 often turns into like 8 to 6 or something like that, and then you chuck in your commute on top of that, where do you have the time and the energy to find balance in your life? This is something that I really noticed for myself, but also I saw it. I think I had a really good luck and good fortune of being the youngest in my family. So I got to watch my parents, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, my brother. I get to watch a lot of them go before me, and I got to see how much they really struggled with that balance. It really wasn't easy for them. Things like, let's say, health or hobbies, or even sometimes family. When I started working, and I had something like 5 years before I started this nomadic, backpacking, traveling, van life, all these things that I've done over the last 7-8 years, I saw it in myself too. Whether it was health or hobbies or friends, relationships or family, or just I love learning, I love growing. I really had a long period of like reading a book every month. These things were so hard to keep in balance with the 9 to 5, 40-hour work week. And I think that's a crazy thing that I started to learn as I kept myself open and as I kept learning about the world. I saw that let's say here in France or in Germany, where I spent a lot of time, they work something like 25, 30%. The numbers vary and it depends where you're getting your numbers from, but they work a lot less than Americans or Japanese or Chinese or etc. But they're still, actually, those hours that they're working are more productive than hours that we work in the US. In a lot of Scandinavian and Nordic countries, they're experimenting with things to give more quality of life, give more time off and more balance in your life. So let's say a 4-day work week, instead of an 8-hour day, a 6-hour day. They're working in a lot of these areas to try to create more work-life balance. Here in France, there's 5 weeks of standardized paid vacation per year. That's a rule, that's a law to protect people. And as we know, all work and no play makes Johnny a dull boy. I don't know where this saying and this quote comes from, but I think a lot of us know this. At some point you hit a wall, you hit a limit, and you can't really be more productive, you can't really be more creative, you're actually not really efficient anymore or effective with your time and your energy. And a lot of us just end up, you end up on Instagram or Facebook or on YouTube or something and just kind of end up killing time at work just to help pass the hours. Who's that good for? That's not really good for anybody. It's something that I've really enjoyed in life these last years, is finding more balance. I've tried to keep my work to around 20 hours, 25 hours a week. I've also tried to keep my other hobbies like reading or exercising or hikes in nature or going out and riding the bike on a long tour. I've tried to keep these hobbies, and also, Netflix, Amazon, Disney, Hulu, HBO, I've tried to keep these things also as priorities in my life, that I have hobbies, I have balance. And this is such an enjoyable thing because, as they say, variety is the spice of life. And I know, again, it might seem like a privilege or a luxury that I or other people get to do this, but I really made it an intentional mission that I wanted to make a change. And, again, I'm not going to say anybody could do this, but I only had a few years of work experience, and I was like, okay, I'm going to make this change. I'm going to find other opportunities, other jobs, other gigs to somehow make this possible, potentially doing something with YouTube, because that can give me a lot of flexibility and a lot of balance. But anyways, I think this is something that's possible for some people, perhaps a good amount of people, depending upon where you're from and what your background is. But I would just so encourage it, because it's so nice to have that variety in your life. And for me, for example, today, spending a lot of time out in nature and filming YouTube videos. Yesterday, I was working a lot more on the computer and on the laptop. Later today, I'll have some phone calls that I gotta be on the computer and on the laptop. But it keeps things interesting, and life is never boring. And I think that's a good thing, right? Okay, boredom is sometimes okay, but I think it's nice to not feel like your life is so boring and monotonous that you're just so tired of it.